Now as Christian was walking solitarily by himself, he espied one afar off, come crossing over the field to meet him, and their hap was to meet just as they were crossing the way of each other. The gentleman's name that met him was Mr. Worldly Wiseman. He dwelt in the town of Carnopolicy, a very great town, and also hard by from whence Christian came. This man, then, meeting with Christian, and having some inkling of him, for Christian's setting forth from the city of destruction was much noised abroad, not only in the town where he dwelt, but also, it began to be the town talk in some other places. Mr. Worldly Wiseman, therefore, having some guess of him, by beholding his laborious going, by observing his sighs and groans and the like, began thus to enter into some talk with Christian. How now, good fellow, whither away after this burdened manner? He asked Christian. A burdened manner indeed, replied Christian, as ever I think a poor creature had. And whereas you asked me, whither away? I tell you, sir, I am going to yonder Wicket Gate before me, for there, as I am informed, I shall be put into a way to be rid of my heavy burden. Hast thou a wife and children? Mr. Worldly Wiseman asked. Yes, said Christian, but I am so laden with this burden, that I cannot take that pleasure in them as formerly. Methinks I am as if I had none. Wilt thou hearken unto me if I give thee counsel? Said Mr. Worldly Wiseman. If it be good, I will, for I stand in need of good counsel, Christian responded. I would advise you then, began Mr. Worldly Wiseman, that with all speed get yourself rid of your burden, for you will never be settled in your mind till then, nor can you enjoy the benefits of the blessing which God hath bestowed upon you till then. That is what I seek for, even to be rid of this heavy burden, but get it off myself, I cannot, nor is there any man in our country that can take it off my shoulders. Therefore am I going this way, as I told you, that I may be rid of my burden, said Christian. Who bid you go this way to be rid of your burden? Asked Mr. Worldly Wiseman. A man that appeared to me to be a very great and honorable person, Christian replied. His name, as I remember, is Evangelist. I beshrew him for his counsel, Mr. Worldly Wiseman said. There is not a more dangerous and troublesome way in the world than is that unto which he hath directed you, and that you shalt find, if you will be ruled by his counsel. You have met with something, as I perceive already, for I see the dirt of the slough of despond is upon you. But that slough is the beginning of the sorrows that do attend those that go on in that way. Hear me, I am older than you art likely to meet with, on the way which you go, wearisomeness, painfulness, hunger, perils, nakedness, sword, lions, dragons, darkness, and in a word, death, and what not? These things are certainly true, having been confirmed by many testimonies. And why should a man so carelessly cast away himself, by giving heed to a stranger? Why, sir, Christian replied, this burden upon my back is more terrible to me than all these things which you have mentioned. Nay, methinks I care not what I meet with in the way, if so be I can also meet with deliverance from my burden. How did you come by the burden at first? Asked Mr. Worldly Wiseman. By reading this book in my hand, Christian said. I thought so, and it has happened unto you as to other weak men, who meddling with things too high for them, do suddenly fall into your distractions, which distractions do not only unman men, as thine, I perceive, has done you, but they run them upon desperate ventures, to obtain they know not what. Mr. Worldly Wiseman said. I know what I would obtain, it is ease for my heavy burden, responded Christian. But why will you seek for ease this way, seeing so many dangers attend it? Said Mr. Worldly Wiseman, especially since, had you but patience to hear me, I could direct you to the obtaining of what you desire, without the dangers that you in this way wilt run yourself into, yea, and the remedy is at hand. Besides, I will add that instead of those dangers, you shall meet with much safety, friendship, and contentment. Christian replied, Pray, sir, open this secret to me. Why, in yonder village, the village is named Morality, there dwells a gentleman whose name is Legality, a very judicious man, and a man of a very good name, that has skill to help men off with such burdens as thine are from their shoulders. Yea, to my knowledge, he hath done a great deal of good this way. Aye, and besides, he hath skill to cure those that are somewhat crazed in their wits with their burdens. To him, as I said, you may go, and be helped presently. His house is not quite a mile from this place, and if he should not be at home himself, he hath a pretty young man to his son, whose name is Civility, that can do it, to speak on, as well as the old gentleman himself. There, I say, you may be eased of your burden. And if you are not minded to go back to your former habitation, as indeed I would not wish for you to, you may send for your wife and children to come to this village, where there are houses now stand empty, one of which you may have at reasonable rates. Provision is there also cheap and good, and that which will make your life the more happy is to be sure there. You shall live by honest neighbors, in credit and good fashion, said Mr. Worldly Wiseman. Now was Christian somewhat at a stand, but presently he concluded, if this be true, what this gentleman hath said, my wisest course is to take his advice, and with that he thus further spoke. He asked, Sir, what is the way to this honest man's house? Do you see yonder hill? Mr. Worldly Wiseman asked. Yes, very well, Christian replied. By that hill you must go, and the first house you come at is his, replied Mr. Worldly Wiseman. So Christian turned out of his way, to go to Mr. Legality's house for help. But behold, when he was got now hard by the hill, it seemed so high, and also that side of it that was next the wayside did hang so much over, that Christian was afraid to venture further, lest the hill should fall on his head. Wherefore there he stood still, and knew not what to do. Also his burden now seemed heavier to him than while he was in his way. There came also flashes of fire out of the hill, that made Christian afraid that he should be burned. Here therefore he sweat and did quake for fear. And now he began to be sorry that he had taken Mr. Worldly Wiseman's counsel. And with that he saw Evangelist coming to meet him, at the sight also of whom he began to blush for shame. So Evangelist drew nearer and nearer, and coming up to him, he looked upon him with a severe and dreadful countenance, and thus began to reason with Christian. What are you doing here, Christian? Said he, at which words Christian knew not what to answer, wherefore at present he stood speechless before him. Then said Evangelist further, Are you not the man that I found crying without the walls of the city of destruction? Yes, dear sir, I am the man, replied Christian. Did not I direct you to the way to the little Wicket Gate? Asked Evangelist. Yes, dear sir, said Christian. How is it then that you art so quickly turned aside? For you art now out of the way, Evangelist said. I met with a gentleman so soon as I had got over the Slough of Despond, who persuaded me that I might in the village before me find a man that could take off my burden, Christian said. What was he? Asked Evangelist. He looked like a gentleman, said Christian, and talked much to me, and got me at last to yield. So I came hither, but when I beheld this hill, and how it hangs over the way, I suddenly made a stand, lest it should fall on my head. What said that gentleman to you? Evangelist said. Why, he asked me whither I was going? And I told him, replied Christian. And what said he then? Evangelist asked. He asked me if I had a family? And I told him. But said I am so loaden with the burden that is on my back, that I cannot take pleasure in them as formerly, Christian stated. Evangelist asked, and what said he then? He bid me with speed get rid of my burden, and I told him it was ease that I sought. And said I am therefore going to yonder gate, to receive further direction how I may get to the place of deliverance. So he said that he would show me a better way, and short, not so attended with difficulties as the way, sir, that you set me in, which way, said he, will direct you to a gentleman's house that hath skill to take off these burdens. So I believed him, and turned out of that way into this, if haply I might be soon eased of my burden. But when I came to this place, and beheld things as they are, I stopped for fear, as I said, of danger. But I now know not what to do, Christian said. Then, said Evangelist, stand still a little, that I may show you the words of God. So he stood trembling. Then said Evangelist, See that you refuse not him that speaks. For if they escape not who refused him that spake on earth, much more shall not we escape, if we turn away from him that speaks from heaven. He said moreover, Now the just shall live by faith, but if any man draw back, my soul shall have no pleasure in him. He also did thus apply them, You art the man that art running into this misery. You hast begun to reject the counsel of the Most High, and to draw back your foot from the way of peace, even almost to the hazarding of your perdition. Then Christian fell down at his foot as dead, crying, Woe is me, for I am undone! At the sight of which, Evangelist caught him by the right hand, saying, All manner of sin and blasphemies shall be forgiven unto men. Be not faithless, but believing. Then did Christian again a little revive, and stood up trembling, as at first, before Evangelist. Then Evangelist proceeded, saying, Give more earnest heed to the things that I shall tell you of. I will now show you who it was that deluded you, and who it was also to whom he sent you. The man that met you is one worldly Wiseman, and rightly is he so called, partly because he savors only the doctrine of this world, therefore he always goes to the town of morality to church, and partly because he loves that doctrine best, for it saves him best from the cross. And because he is of this carnal temper, therefore he seeks to prevent my ways, though right. Now there are 3 things in this man's counsel that you must utterly abhor. 1. His turning you out of the way. 2. His laboring to render the cross odious to you. And 3. His setting your feet in that way that leads unto the administration of death. First, you must abhor his turning you out of the way, yea, and thine own consenting thereto, because this is to reject the counsel of God for the sake of the counsel of a worldly Wiseman. The Lord says, Strive to enter in at the strait gate, the gate to which I send you, for strait is the gate which leads unto life, and few there be that find it. From this little wicket gate, and from the way thereto, hath this wicked man turned you, to the bringing of you almost to destruction. Hate, therefore, his turning you out of the way, and abhor yourself for hearkening to him. Secondly, you must abhor his laboring to render the cross odious unto you, for you art to prefer it before the treasures in Egypt. Besides, the King of glory hath told you, that he that will save his life shall lose it. And he that comes after him, and hate not his father, and mother, and wife, and children, and brethren, and sisters, yea, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. I say, therefore, for man to labor to persuade you, that shall be your death, without which, the truth hath said, you cannot have eternal life. This doctrine you must abhor. Thirdly, you must hate his setting of your feet in the way that leads to the ministration of death. And for this, you must consider to whom he sent you, and also how unable that person was to deliver you from your burden. He to whom you were sent for ease, being by name Legality, is the son of the bondwoman which now is, and is in bondage with her children, and is in a mystery, this Mount Sinai, which you hast feared will fall on your head. Now if she, with her children, are in bondage, how can you expect by them to be made free? This Legality, therefore, is not able to set you free from your burden. No man was as yet ever rid of his burden by him, no, nor ever is like to be. You cannot be justified by the works of the law, for by the deeds of the law no man living can be rid of his burden. Therefore, Mr. Worldly Wiseman is an alien, and Mr. Legality is a cheat, and for his son Civility, notwithstanding his simpering looks, he is but a hypocrite, and cannot help you. Believe me, there is nothing in all this noise that you hast heard of these sottish men, but a design to beguile you of your salvation, by turning you from the way in which I had set you. After this, Evangelist called aloud to the heavens for confirmation of what he had said, and with that there came words and fire out of the mountain under which poor Christian stood, that made the hair of his flesh stand up. The words were thus pronounced, As many as are of the works of the law are under the curse. For it is written, Cursed is every one that continues not in all things which are written in the book of the law to do them. Now Christian looked for nothing but death, and began to cry out lamentably, even cursing the time in which he met with Mr. Worldly Wiseman, still calling himself 1,000 fools for hearkening to his counsel. He also was greatly ashamed to think that this gentleman's arguments, flowing only from the flesh, should have the prevalency with him as to cause him to forsake the right way. This done, he applied himself again to Evangelist, in words and sense as follows. Christian said, Sir, what think you? Is there hope? May I now go back, and go up to the Wicket Gate? Shall I not be abandoned for this, and sent back from thence ashamed? I am sorry I have hearkened to this man's counsel. But may my sin be forgiven? Then said Evangelist to him, Your sin is very great, for by it you hast committed 2 evils. You has forsaken the way that is good, to tread in forbidden paths. Yet the man at the gate will receive you, for he has goodwill for men. Only, said he, take heed that you turn not aside again, lest you perish from the way. When his wrath is kindled but a little,